What is your fake it till you make it story?
Not me, but my cousin applied for a brand new restaurant job and didn't get it. Her friend got the job, and she was pissed she didn't get hired. So her friend told her where and when orientation was, and she decided to fake getting hired till she made it. She went to orientation, all the training, introduced herself to all the staff, management, and made her presence known. After a couple of weeks working, everyone got their paychecks, except her. She went up to management, and was like,
"What the hell? Everyone got paid but me. You've seen me working for the last 2 weeks."
Management goes into the computer system, and checks.
That's so weird. You're not in the system, I'm so sorry. Must be a clerical error. We will get you in the system, and paid right away.
And that's how my cousin, fake got hired till she made it. I want to be like her when I grow up.
I started at a big old multinational in retail as a college dropout. I started at the lowest rung of customer service in a store. Now retail has lots and lots of staff turnover. And a multinational has a ton of rules, or you'd expect them to have. Also, I'm not the dumbest around, never mind the college dropout, that's another story, and well, to be fair, not everyone in retail is super smart. So there was a consistent lack of management, or they didn't care, and all the rules and regulations had gaps in them. So people start asking questions.
How do I solve this?
What should I do next?
Etc. Nobody had an answer to these questions, so I started answering them, using common sense, or what I'd think should work. Just filling the gaps, which probably made me look a lot smarter than I am. Just faking that I knew what I was doing. So I started climbing the ladders, and I am now the senior finance and operations director for a store with a gross turnover of over €160 million. However, cracks are starting to show. The company got a lot more serious, and I'm surrounded by smart people with high degrees where I can't bluff my way through problems and meetings as easily. So, I'm thinking of taking a step back and relaxing a bit more on lower position. I was a lot happier then, and had way less stress, and way less hours. Long story short, faking works until it doesn't.
Last weekend I was at a wedding dance, and they played the Get Up. No one knew the dance, including myself, but liquid encouragement kicked in, and I led the entire wedding dance, 50 plus people, in a dance that I completely made up on the spot. Everyone was so impressed after that, I knew all of the moves, that I didn't tell anyone any different. Edit, thanks for the silver. My first. Cheers.
I hope some of those people are teaching others your made-up dance.
It's already in Fortnite.
Better sue quickly.
I invented the reverse hemorrhoid dance.
This is how I am with salsa dancing. I know the basic steps, and I know how to spin but nothing else. So I start making crap up as I get drunker and drunker. People always revere it as an amazing skill, and I'm just freestyling, and I'm too afraid to own up and tell them I don't actually know. My wife even thinks I'm good. Deep hole.
Dancing is one of those things where if people think you look good, you're good.
I'll take this one step farther. If you think you look good, people will think you look good. Most people aren't confident enough to just bust a move.
From what I understand, salsa is 90% confidence, and 10% flirtatious shimmying.
Salsa, like most of Latino dances, is the vertical expression of the horizontal desire.
During college, I worked part-time as a deli clerk in a grocery store. I had zero experience with deli items, didn't know head cheese from salami, or provolone from Munster. So, I'd explain to customers that I was new, and ask them to point to items in the case that they wanted, and what the sign indicated for the price per pound. They always seemed happy to help out, especially when I gave them free samples from the slicing machine.
Hey. This kid has been new for over 10 years now.
Sounds like a lot of baloney, if you ask me.
He wouldn't know, he's new.
I George Costanza'd my way into a job in high school. I was looking for a new job, and went to apply at a local movie theater. The general manager asked to interview me on the spot, which I wasn't at all prepared for, but went with it anyway. This was like a Wednesday, or Thursday night. The interview went well, and she told me she was going to be out of town this weekend, but she would let me know on Monday. I didn't want to wait, so the next day at school I got my work permit filled out, and took it back. I dropped it off to another manager, and told them she told me to bring this crap in. They asked if I could start the next day. I ended up working there for over 3 years.
This guy hired himself.
This will work in a lot of companies.
Pretty much any company that is short-staffed and disorganized.
I'd always been interested in programming. As a kid I tried to teach myself C and Java with mild success. Fast forward to the time I'm 24. I'm working as a piercing apprentice at a tattoo shop making $20 per day a few days per week. I meet a girl, fall for said girl ends up pregnant. A few hours after the pregnancy test I'm applying for jobs on Craigslist, and I find a PHP job a few minutes up the road. I've worked with PHP for maybe a few hours in my entire lifetime, but it was a tiny company, and the interview wasn't technical. I lied through my teeth the entire time, and get hired. After being hired I tried to start learning PHP on the job. The owner of the company created his own PHP framework which was god-awful. So I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. I got fired 2 weeks later. In those 2 weeks on the job I made an honest effort to learn more about web design and development, so I offered my design services to a local web design company for free so that I could learn. Walking home after being fired I called up the web design company, and they ended up hiring me. I would learn on the job for a year or so, and then take my skills to get more money somewhere else. 10 years later I'm the lead software engineer on a big project making just over 6 figures. If a pregnancy test hadn't scared me to death that day I would still be working dead-end jobs to scrape up enough money for weed and booze.
I taught a class on a specialty software program. I was learning the software myself, and I was literally one class ahead of the people I was teaching.
You sound like my COMSOL multiphysics teacher. Though, she openly admitted to our class that she was basically doing the class with us. Fortunately, the class was extremely easy, and didn't really require much teacher guidance.
Until, that one snarky student, who knows everything starts questioning you on things that are chapters away.
The rest of the class will get to that soon. You are more than welcome to work ahead if you would like, but understand that all questions about future assignments should be held until the rest of the class gets to those assignments, so we all can look at them together.
I was desperate for a job several years back, so I wrote up this resume that was utter horseshit on a whim. Granted, some of it was legit, but a good 80% was me bullshitting. Amazingly enough, I got a call for an interview, and by some miracle, they ended up hiring me, and I worked for the place for 7 years before something I was actually qualified for opened up at another workplace. That bullshit resume saved me from ruin though, so I always will look back in that crazy situation fondly.
What was the job you had for 7 years?
It was a job as a programmer for this company, that programs home automation touch screens. To be honest, I would never have lasted at that job, were it not for this guy that had been there for years, and he really took me under his wing.
I had this file thing, in elementary school, where you have to put all your worksheets in a folder, and my teacher will check it at the end of the year. Well, I did not do it, and convinced her that I handed in, but she lost it. She said she will get back to me, and I'm still waiting.
What's the chance that she saw through your bullshit, but couldn't be bothered to deal with it? I mean, who the hell wants to mark a whole year's worth of worksheets right before the summer holidays?
This is probably why a good number of fake it till you make it scenarios work. Some people see through the facade, but can't be bothered to deal with it because it would be too much trouble.
One time, I accidentally convinced a teacher that I handed in a worksheet. I did it, and I thought I handed it in. I was convinced by myself that I handed it in. But then later I found it in my bag. I never told my teacher because I was too scared of her. She was a mean one. I got an 80% on that worksheet.
I just want to know how you got an 80%, with no work.
From a teacher's perspective, if a kid is usually good for it, you're not trying to ruin someone's grade because you may have made a little mistake like losing a worksheet. Just easier to put in a B, and move on.
My piece of druggy brother-in-law used to lie, and said he had heavy equipment operator experience. He'd get the job, and get fired within a day, or two, but pick up something small. Did that 15 or 20 times, and kept moving around until he learned enough to not get fired.
This explains a lot. I always have trouble finding work, but my pill-popping half-brother can get a job 3 days after getting fired from running a dude's foot over.
The key, apparently, is to not have any sense of ethical responsibility.
I feel like that is the real key to success at any walk of life, except maybe doctors, and pilots. My business started by me just saying, yes, I can do that, I can supply that for you. I had no idea that they would be willing to hear me out. 5 years later, and I'm now supplying desks and office equipment to over 120 offices in London. You really can go far if you just say yes. You really can go far if you just say yes.
Well, yeah. The hard part is not saying yes, it's actually following through, laughing my off.
This is fine if you're the one doing all of the running around, and working late to deliver whatever you've promised. If you have people working for you, it's the worst thing you can do. Can't tell you how many weekends I've lost because bosses I've had say yes to every client request, and even agree to timescales before talking to me. Then they don't pay you overtime. This is the best way to burn people out, or force them to leave.
This is what my job turned into, because my boss couldn't say no to stupid shit. Our entire team quit. Social anxiety. I was always the quiet guy up until a few years ago. I decided I was tired of not having friends, and I started faking confidence, and talking to everyone. In the beginning I was dying inside, and felt like I was walking on glass. Now I don't know when to shut up, and can talk to just about anyone.
Yes, I had a similar experience. I always had friends, but found it difficult to engage with people outside my small circle. I used to get such bad social anxiety, that I would throw up before every major social engagement, like parties, and sometimes in situations where I knew there was definitely nothing to fear, like going to lunch with my friends. I decided I needed to do something about this, so I started paying attention to how a friend of mine who was very good in social situations conducted herself, and just copied her. After a while, I started appearing confident, though I still had the anxiety, and eventually the anxiety went away almost completely. It still happens sometimes, but I rarely throw up, like, maybe once a year in a really daunting situation. Now people always remark on how confident I am, and I always make a point of telling them it's learned rather than innate.
I was on the stage for a hypnotist, and didn't get hypnotized, but I decided to go along with it.
Sounds like you got hypnotized in the sense that you felt pressure to go along with what the hypnotist was asking. Guy I used to work with told me about when he used to work as an electrician apprentice at a plant. When there was nothing to do, which apparently was most of the time, the lead guy and him would walk out to a random spot in the plant, with a ladder, a conduit bender, and a bent piece of conduit. Then one of them would stand on top of the ladder, and the other on the ground holding the conduit, and they'd just chit-chat all day. If any of the bosses wandered by, they'd nod, and pass the piece of conduit up to the guy on the ladder, who would then make a show of trying to fit it in somewhere. Said they both made it through 3 rounds of layoffs doing that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and ring the notification bell.